Vibration and frequency is everything. It is literally everything. If you take an aspirin, it changes the way you vibrate. And so it blocks the nerves so that you can't feel pain. If you take deworming programs, you change your vibration, and you change your vibration so dramatically that the worms and parasites either have to get out of you, this is no longer a good home, or they die in you. My name is Wayne Rowland. I'm just like you. I have heard that there's a cure for disease that's been suppressed. One man called me, and he said, there's not one cancer that's been suppressed, there's been 5. Which one do you want to know about? I said, whatever one works. He sent me to somebody that had an original Rife Ray unit, and I used it. 3 months later, the cancer was gone. So was my arthritis. And I was so gung-ho on it that I decided that I had to get involved in building Rife machines and get it out there for people and really help them. So I started doing research into the Rife technologies, and I found another man who really knew quite a bit about Rife and had all the frequencies and everything, and I went to see him and paid him a little bit of money, and he became a friend of mine. His name is John Sajeka, and John Sajeka showed me that I wasn't using the Hertz rates to get rid of cancer at all. And that upset me, because I paid good money for this. Now, and why did the cancer leave? And I looked at the Hertz rates that I was using, and lo and behold, there were Hertz rates to get rid of worms and parasites. It turned out that the lead poisoning was giving a bed for parasites to breed in furiously, and it was their waste that had given me cancer. I was absolutely in shock. And the more research I did and the further I got into this, the more I found out that pretty much all disease is caused by worms and parasites.
Parasites are demons, and when you start to compare the two, you'll see there's a lot of similarities. Parasites don't just invade your body, they hijack your nervous system, control us very easily. By definition, both are known to control their host and manipulate behavior. I mean, look at these things. They can influence your thoughts, the types of foods you crave, encourage sexual desires, even your dreams. So it's very possible these parasites act as antennas or conduits for these demonic entities. Archons, jinn, demons, whatever you want to call them. But think about it. Why else is there fast food, alcohol, and junk on every street corner? And then you combine that with pesticides, fungicides, microplastics, heavy metals. Think about what kind of influences you could be under. These are the sources of addiction. This is why people can't break those bad habits or those vices. You ask yourself, why'd you do that? Why'd you eat that? Why do you keep doing those things you know are bad for you? Is it you, or is it the parasite forcing that self-destructive behavior? Now, even the Bible says some demons can only be casted out through fasting. Anyone who's done a deep fast knows those shakes of abstaining from certain foods. You're like a drug addict being revealed your true addictions. But then it gets easier as you starve those demons out. So this is what no one tells you about a parasite cleanse. Killing the parasites is just the first step. You still have to flush them out of your system, otherwise you're left with a bunch of dead worms inside of you.
Tell me what your theory is in terms of disease and how you recommend that disease is treated.
I generalized because I saw so many diseases that I was working on to be due to a parasite and a toxin in combination, kind of a collusion between them maybe, that I generalized and said all diseases are due to a combination of some parasite or something that's trying to live on you, and a toxin, maybe a solvent, maybe a heavy metal that's facilitating that invader. Well, the easiest example that comes to mind is diabetes. You have the pancreatic fluke invading the pancreas and pollutant wood alcohol, methyl alcohol, wood alcohol, which pollutes nearly all the processed food that we have on the market in tiny amounts. But by the time you're drinking and eating it all day long with that little bit, it adds up. And that combination, I always see in diabetes. That might not be all there is to it, but if you correct those two things, you recover from your diabetes.
I was really shocked when I found out that this is something that affects every single living human. In fact, every single living organism on the face of the earth. Could be leading a healthy lifestyle. You could be jogging, eating raw food, taking vitamins and all those kind of things. But these guys don't care. These guys are persistent. They're dangerous. They're deadly. They've been around for millions of years. They know what they're doing, and they're inside of all of us. And we're constantly being exposed to this. Is something that we all need to take very seriously.
This is not science fiction. This is scary, it's real, and it's serious. Monsters living inside us that eat our bodies and control our emotions, urges, and thoughts.
As a colon hydrotherapist for approximately 21 years now, you wouldn't believe what I see coming out of people's bodies.
This is not just a third world country thing. Everybody has them. Even normal people with lots of money living in suburbia who take showers 3 times a day. If you eat sushi, you have parasites. 1 square inch of raw sushi meat can contain 10,000 parasite larvae and eggs that begin hatching inside you the minute you eat it. The most common kind is tapeworms, which can grow to 60 feet long and live in your intestines for decades. If you have pets, you are guaranteed to have parasites. You can't kill them all, only control them, because our bodies have trillions of cells which rely on helpful bacteria like probiotics to work right. If we kill all the organisms in our body, we kill ourselves. The secret is to keep the bad guys to a minimum. Make our bodies so healthy and clean, the undesirable guests won't want to stick around. Parasites are living alien creatures who live off of others. They eat your food, they poop their waste inside you, making your blood, lymph, and tissues toxic. They can multiply so much in your gut what you think is fat may in fact be entire nests of parasites.
Subject to this, like it or not, it's a fact.
Tests done at funeral homes show that 97% of the body fluids in people were totally consumed with parasites and worms. Scientists are just beginning to discover exactly how powerful and disturbing these hidden monsters can be. Our cells are controlled by chemical signals. Parasites emit a chemical that directly affects our behavior, thoughts, decisions, and urges. Are you willing to do what it takes to free yourself from something that's controlling you from inside? Who's in charge, you or them?
If doctors couldn't handle anything, and here this little priest had come out of the woodwork and handled my lead poisoning like he did and some other health issues, and I went back to the doctors to tell them there was no interest. They weren't interested. That floored me. So I said to them, what else are you not telling us? And that meant I had to go back into history and find out where they'd made a mess of it. And as the further I got back in history through the 1800s, I began to realize that, look, did they know absolutely nothing? I mean, that's the opinion that everyone basically has. You know, back there in the 1800s, they knew nothing. So I started finding books that were published by doctors through the 1800s, books that they read and books that they learned from. And lo and behold, out of every single book were deworming programs, parasite programs, all through America, all through Canada, all through the world, parasite programs, and pictures of parasites that they had found in flesh. For doctors in those days did autopsies, and they found parasites. No one is resistant to worms and parasites. And look at the 1800s. We go through the 1800s, what did the doctors do then? They dewormed you. And the best man I like in America is Dr. Chase out of Chicago. He wrote 3 books. You can get them in the library in the old book section, Dr. Chase. In the center of his book, he's got a whole bunch of remedies for deworming. And you know what? He kept records. I love it. And here's what he stated. For some strange reason, after 40 years of practice, I have asked everybody how often they deworm, and the people that deworm every year never come in for anything. They come in for checkups. They're healthy. And the people that never deworm, except for 2 or 3 years down the road, need some doctoring. And the people that never deworm, well, we're starting a new clinic for them because they have this strange new disease called cancer. And Dr. Chase got an 80% success rate right in Chicago in the 1800s of getting rid of cancer by deworming. So we started to search for parasite programs just to see what was going on, to see if maybe something was happening that we really didn't understand. So I did myself first. And lo and behold, I got 8 and 10 inch critters out of me. They were white, First of all, they were in the toilet water and they were all bunched up. I thought it was mucus. Until, just for a curiosity, I threw some hot water in the toilet to warm it up, and then went, and gosh, they strung out and they were swimming all over. And I thought, oh my heavens, look at that. Since then, in 5 years, I've dewormed 100,000 of you. And you should see and hear the stories. The last pictures are coming in when I get home. They should be there. The woman got 18-inch long critters out of her that were so thick she couldn't get them into a top of a juice bottle. She got 8 of them. They're usually translucent, they're usually white, and there's some of them that look like tarantula spiders, some of them look like grasshoppers, some of them look like little tiny miniature sailboats. Some of them look like little spacecraft. Yeah, this is really strange stuff. And every single person I have dewormed, I have never yet dewormed anyone where they didn't tell me, hey, I feel 25% better. Now here's the problem. We go to Safeway and we buy vegetables, right? Or we go to our garden and get vegetables. Well, thousands and thousands of eggs, parasite eggs, float in the soil and the water in the soil, and the roots from the plants suck them up into the leaves. Now, those eggs are not supposed to hatch in your body. Nature has seen to that. They're supposed to pass right through. But you buy salad dressing. Now, when they make salad dressing, they've got this huge stainless steel vat, and it makes 1 million bottles of ranch. And when they're finished with that, they want to make honey mustard, so they clean the machine out with what's called food-grade propalcohol. And when they're in a hurry like that, they don't get in there with rags and wipe it up. They just pour in the new ingredients and mix it up, and you're consuming what's called propalcohol. So we take a Petri dish and we grind up lettuce from Safeway or the health food market down there with organic vegetables, pour in a little bit of salad dressing from one of the food stores, and we grind it up and we put a swab on it on a Petri dish, and in the morning all the flukes have hatched by the hundreds. So what you're doing at body temperature is you're hatching flukes by the thousands every single day you eat salads and all this other stuff, and they get into your bloodstream. Now you have T cells, an immune system, and they see these critters and their war starts. And some of them, they just need to find a place of safety. For some reason, your pancreas gathers up wood alcohol. A fluke or two finds their way in there, and they grow up and they have babies and they start making a mess. They have feces, you know. Well, the flukes that are living in your pancreas, the feces there collects single-celled organisms called viruses. Their waste shuts the pancreas down, and you've got diabetes. And now breast tumors. Breast tumors, it seems now, are just about as easy to get rid of as a common cold. It's caused by parasites. And so your thymus gets full of parasites, and here you have your thymus now, it's not operating properly, and the thyroid, it doesn't operate properly. That affects the acid in your stomach. The strength of the acid in your stomach starts to shut down. And what do you get? You get mold off a fruit growing there, and you wind up with candida. There's an 1800s remedy. It's called Lugol's iodine. For those that are not allergic to iodine, if you can eat shellfish, shrimp, or the sort, you buy yourself a little bit of Lugol's iodine, knocks candida out just about overnight. Certainly will in 3 days. You take 6 drops, 3 times a day for 3 days. The mold and the fungus and all that nonsense growing in your stomach and all that candida growing there knocks it out flat. It's only $8. Listen to this. You know, I always believed that Alzheimer's was caused by aluminum in the brain eating the neurotransmitters out. Is that not correct? That's what we all believe? Well, the aluminum in the brain, which is there, is not eating out the neurotransmitters. It's the organisms, the bugs and the parasites that need the aluminum's vibration to go into a breeding frenzy. And it's their waste that's eating out the neurotransmitters. People that are super parasitical, they have bad breath. Halitosis is a main cause. By the time you got halitosis, you're loaded, because that's worm urine and worm droppings that you're breathing out. So it's no wonder your breath's bad. It's time to deworm, and it's time to get them out. So what I've discovered, and this is really important, You know when you go to the health food store and you do your thing and you get all those vitamins and you do this program and that program and you do all this stuff, you go so far and you can't get any further. You hit a wall and you're aging, you're getting older. And so we put a program together, and I tell you it's a deworming program. When they get into your thymus, do you know what happens? Your thymus starts to shut down. It disturbs the quantity and quality of acid in your stomach, and as a result of that, you come down with Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue syndrome, or candida. The mold now grows in your stomach because the acid isn't strong enough to kill it, and so the fruits you eat, here you've got a new problem. You're developing warts and all kinds of other things, and it's a mold problem. When you've got flukes in your thymus, you develop chronic fatigue and Epstein-Barr. All you need is a deworming program to shut it down. I'm telling you folks, this is big stuff. And now the FDA is on to us. They now know what the water will do. They now know what all this stuff is due, so they're prescriptionalizing everything. The FDA is shutting it all down with a new program they put in motion that is a labeling issue. And they're taking all colloids off the market. But the point is they're not, the FDA doesn't care. They've got you where they want you, you're not doing anything, and so they're shutting everything down. And I want to tell you something, there's things around like this. This is called human growth hormone. And I found out if you put this with colostrum, which we also have, and you hook this up with your deworming program, this is an age regression program, guaranteed. It works.
Within the Bible, the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, God gives us a list of animals we should be eating and shouldn't be eating, right? So one thing I found that's interesting about the unclean animals, the common thing they have with each other is the fact that they're all bottom feeders. They eat dead carcasses and dead animals and garbage and feces, right? And scientifically, unclean animals within the Bible are more likely to be a haven for parasites, right? Like pork. We've all heard of like pork worms and pork parasites, right? Specifically associated with pork. Shellfish, right? A lot of shellfish also contains parasites because they're like the bottom feeders of the ocean. They eat whatever and they become havens for parasites, and people eat these products, and that's one of the ways they become infected. Like a rule of thumb is just follow what Jesus did. Did Jesus eat unclean animals? No. Well, there's probably good reason for that, right? And although the Bible doesn't give us the broad reason or the specific reasons for a lot of the commandments, it says in the Bible that the Spirit of truth is going to lead you to all truth, right? So if you want answers for why you should follow this, well, God's going to lead you to these answers, and I believe he's led me to figuring out this kind of stuff, right? So another commandment in the Bible is that God tells people in Leviticus, or his people, to salt every food offering that they have, meaning put sea salt on every single food item.
Oh, see, maybe we don't oversalt things. Maybe you guys undersalt them.
Here's the thing. There's a difference between natural sea salt and table salt. Table salt is horrible. It's full of caking agents and preservatives. Sea salt is good for you, right? Natural sea salt is. And so there are scientific studies that show that a diet high in sea salt could protect against invading microbes and parasites. Every single food that you eat, every meat you cook with, put a decent amount of salt on it. And like I said, scientifically, it kills parasites, right? A diet higher in sea salt kills parasites. Drinking wine also helps your gut microbiome, right? It fixes it. And I believe it also kills parasites. And in the Bible, I don't know if it was Timothy who said, for the sake of your stomach, drink a little wine, not just water, right? For ailments, he even said specifically for ailments and sicknesses, drink a little wine, not just water.
These parasites are able to influence the nerves of these animals. And so the idea behind that is like, okay, maybe these parasites are related to demons in the way that, like, you look at these old records about demons being able to like influence your thoughts and get you to do things that you wouldn't normally be doing. It's because these parasites are influencing you to act in different ways than you normally would in order to continue their reproduction, right? And to continue their lives.
I mean, look, think about, and by the way, this idea of parasites getting into animals, making the animals kill themselves, Christ casting the spirits into the pigs, and the pigs all go kill themselves.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. This kind of sounds a lot like that. Okay.
Right. And by the way, kosher law back in the day was protecting you from parasites you would pick up from eating pigs. That's why pigs weren't kosher in part. That's one of the theories that people think is it was something that would be eaten, right? That would actually get you parasites. So it was a way, it was a health code to keep you healthy. And so
keep
maybe
you from all of these guys.
You can't kill them all, only control them, because our bodies have trillions of cells which rely on helpful bacteria like probiotics to work right. If we kill all the organisms in our body, we kill ourselves. The secret is to keep the bad guys to a minimum. Make our bodies so healthy and clean, the undesirable guests won't want to stick around. Don't feed them the junk food they love. Sweet stuff, bread, alcohol, rice, pasta, milk, cookies, crackers, cereal, meat, cheese, cooked foods, refined carbohydrates, soft drinks, commercial fruit juices, junk foods. They love the food you love and hate the food you hate. Even letting yourself become run down energetically allows them to get stronger. So who's winning, you or them? Common signs of parasites are you're tired a lot, sleeping problems, constant itching, weakness, headaches, lack of appetite, or hungry all the time, especially for sweet foods and carbs, flu-like symptoms, depression, skin problems, acne, arthritis, joint pains, eczema, dermatitis, sinus problems, breathing and lung problems like pneumonia, then uncontrollable coughing, lumps under the skin, cysts, diarrhea and constipation, sometimes alternating back and forth, mucus in your stool, irritable bowel syndrome, stomach aches, cramps, digestion problems, nausea, overly dry lips, vision and eye problems, gas, bloating. Parasites can burrow into your brain and cause nerve damage and eye problems. They can multiply so much in your gut what you think is fat may in fact be entire nests of parasites. They can clog up your digestive tract so much no food can get through, making you constipated. They love to live in your stomach and intestines because that's where all the food goes and you feed them every day. As a matter of fact, it's said that almost every health condition known can be connected with parasites in some way.
But what if I told you that cancer, acne rosacea, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis, 4 different diseases in 4 different areas of medicine, what if they can all be treated with parasite medication? And that turns out for those diseases to be true. A pathologist, I think McDonald is his name, he was in Florida, I believe, he looked at 100% of MS, dead MS patients. He had a series of 10 patients that died of multiple sclerosis. 100% of them had parasites in the brain and spinal cord. So in the big picture here, we have a book called the ICD-10, which shows that we have 70,000 disease diagnoses you can come up with and codify for Medicare and Medicaid and all these different government agencies. Are there really 70,000 diseases? Or are there 70,000 presentations of a few root causes? That's where we need to go back.
We're all subject to this, like it or not. It's a fact.
Is it possible that there's a link between demonic entities and the negative parasitic beings that live in our bodies? When we talk about demons, what are we talking about? Evil spiritual entities? Or are they just a figment of our imagination? Well, I would say they are very real, and not only are they spiritual beings, but they can manifest into this world in many ways, and one of those ways is through parasitic organisms. Let's start with, what are the common symptoms of demon possession? 1. They have the power to influence your mind and to fill it with destructive thoughts. 2. They can have an influence on the dream realm, manifesting as shadow beings during sleep paralysis. 3. Possession usually involves becoming sick and constantly tired. 4. Your spiritual powers and ambition begin to diminish. 5. Over-extreme sexual desires that can never be fulfilled. 6. Material and egotistical desires that end up driving the person possessed and mad. And that's just the start. I'm sure it could go on, but I want you to think about the connection between demons and the infestation of parasites in the body. Most humans are not aware of how many parasites they really have. Almost all of our eating habits result in parasitic beings finding a home in the waste that fills our body. If you eat meat, let me just let you know, you are filled with parasites. Not only are high-protein diets extremely acidic, but the body doesn't know what to do with all this excess protein. What ends up happening is our sewage system gets backed up. Also, most of us are completely enzyme deficient, and there's no way that our bodies can actually digest this meat. So you know what happens? It literally stays in your body and rots. If only you knew what your colon really looked like inside. Oh, but you're vegan. You think you're an exception? Think again. Most vegans consume an extreme amount of protein in order to compensate for not eating meat. Most of them cook all of their foods. Again, enzyme deficient, and top that with genetic deficiencies, we end up having issues removing toxins from our body. All of this cooked food is dead, and your body has no idea what to do with all this toxicity. The only way to protect itself is by forming mucus. This mucus is what's saving your body. But what tends to happen is this hardens and stays in our body for a very long time. If you eat 3 times a day, you're cooking your foods, and you're not taking extra measures to cleanse your body, then you are most likely infested with parasites, meat or no meat. I think most of us can't imagine the amount of energy that we could have if we remove these parasites from the body. It's not just that, most people don't even realize that their thoughts are not even their own. This also explains why it's so difficult to silence the mind.
It's not really that crazy to think that if there is something inside of us that wanted to thrive, like a parasite, that they could influence their host to make decisions that create a more hospitable environment for their kind. These microbial organisms absolutely have the ability to steer the thoughts, emotions, and actions of their host. Sounds an awful lot like possession to me.
You have beings inside of you that just sit and demand what to eat, they feast all day long, and then they poop inside of you all day and night. Parasites have the ability to affect your mind. Well, we usually don't become aware of disease in our body until it manifests as a serious issue. Most people don't consider that maybe most of their tiny symptoms like tiredness, headaches, bad odor, depression, and itchiness are the first signs that something isn't right. But what do most people do? They go to the doctor and get these symptoms suppressed with what they assume will be a quick fix. These chemical medicines do not solve the issue, they just suppress it. Eventually, it will come back, and when it does, it will be a full-on disease. If we can accept that we have parasites, we can start to see why this would be connected to demons. Parasites are beings of death. They thrive off of death and rotting. They too can have an influence on your dreams.
I think a common misconception is that freedom of being an adult is getting to drink booze and eat as much pizza and ice cream as you want, but those are drugs pushed on us as kids, and when we become adults, we think that we're choosing to eat those things, but all that's really happening is we're becoming slaves to our cravings. Much like a thrall is a slave to a demon. It's exactly like drug addiction. It's called the Food and Drug Administration for a reason. Why would food and drugs be lumped together if they didn't serve the same purpose? Alcohol is even called spirits. When someone has an addiction problem, they call it demons. It's also common knowledge that addiction is a disease. So if addiction is a disease, as well as a demon, then what makes any other disease not a form of demon? Typically, parasites are these long, worm-like things or fibrous beings that inhabit our guts, and they resemble antennae or fiber optics. Begs the question, if parasites can influence our thoughts, and they can influence our dreams, and they can influence our desires, then could it be possible that parasites are antennae for demonic entities to manifest in the body? Para, prefix. A prefix with many meanings, including alongside of, beside, near, resembling, beyond, apart from, and abnormal. Site, an area of ground in which a town, building, or monument is constructed. So if we imagine our bodies as temples, this word begins to make a lot of sense. Something that is inside your body that shouldn't be. Almost all religions attribute worms and parasites as being evil or the work of Satan. Is it influenza? Or is it the influence of demonic entities? The word influenza even sounds like influence, so what do people say when you sneeze? They bless you. Why would they do that? The average answer, of course, is that people in the olden days were just dumb Christian zealots who attributed everything to Jesus and blessings, because the general idea is that they were stupider in the past. However, I expect that the perpetuation of that idea is to cause confusion and mistrust in all things spiritual.
Even schizophrenia, where many people see and hear evil voices from all around, could be caused by a disharmony of the body and an infestation of parasites. From Science Daily, quote, recent studies have found evidence of worrisome impacts, including an association with schizophrenia because of the parasite T. gondii. It's found in the brain as well in the muscles. In addition, field and laboratory studies in mice, rats, and people have shown that infection with T. gondii triggers change in behavior and personality. Here's a study that goes over this same exact thing. A growing body of evidence suggests a correlation between schizophrenia and exposure to infectious agents. The majority of studied cases concerns the infection caused by T. gondii, an obligatory intracellular parasite that infects about 1/3 of the entire human population, according to the available data. Quote, Numerous epidemiological case control studies show a higher prevalence of T. gondii infestation in individuals with various psychiatric and behavior disorders, including schizophrenia. A lot of these studies are just focusing on one parasite alone, but really, they have no clue what's actually going on in the body. That's another thing I've always accepted growing up, that the medical establishment actually knows what they're doing. I have no idea why we think this. Doctors do not heal anyone. Allopathic medicine fails at solving any issues, and most of the time, it just makes it worse. Again, why do we assume that these people actually know what these chemicals are doing in our body? I'm sure they understand it from a very boxed-in perspective, but they have no idea how it affects our body as a whole. The parasites love antibacterials. It doesn't kill them all, by the way. It just completely destroys your gut flora and kills all the good bacteria. You have parasites in your brain, in your heart, and when you take these medications, it destroys what you have left of good bacteria, just making it easier for the parasites to thrive. We just stuff ourselves all day long with mostly indigestible foods that just sit in our body and rot, while our body overworks and tires itself trying to get rid of all this waste that never ends.